All right, we're live, so we just have to wait for people to join us. I know they will have received the notification soon, so let's see.
So will I be able to see who's here?
Oh, we have 24 people from YouTube. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the stream. We will wait for about 5 minutes and then we're going to get started. Hey, Sarah, hi from Scotland. Hi from London. Oh, Kathy, you're in London. Perfect. Let me also notify our WhatsApp community.
Sorry?
I'm going to notify, I'm going to post on our WhatsApp to let them know we're live.
You're very multimodal today.
Yes. Hey, hi, Roger. And hi, Anthony. Oh, okay, I have a lot of people from the UK. Nice. We're 27 people. So we're going to wait a few minutes. It's only 5 p.m. And then we're going to get started.
I think I've put my presentation.
Yeah, sure. You can let us know where you joining us from today. It looks like we have a lot of people from the UK. We're based in London. For anyone who wants to learn more about Tesseract Academy, please join our. Please take a look at our website. I'm pretty sure we're going to have a very, very, very interesting presentation and discussion with Nadim today.
I hope so.
Okay, let me activate the share. There we go. All right. $43. Nice. Yeah, maybe we're going to wait a few more minutes. I think we had over 200 or close to 200 registrations. So it's probably worth waiting a bit longer.
It's never fun waiting like this because it's so silent. You don't know what people are doing.
Indeed, but I see one more person wrote something. Sorry, Leicester. Okay, more people from the UK. Where are there people joining us from? And what brings you here? Are you a creative professional? Are you interested? Are you just interested in AI? Yeah, just let us know. There's going to be a Q&A after the event. So the more we know about you, the more interesting the conversation is going to be.
Hello, Roger and JP. I'm seeing a few names popping up now.
Yes, you can see them on the stream as well, as you see. Oh, great. Oh, hi, Bill. Oh, some people are joining from LinkedIn as well. Perfect.
Hello,
Interesting. Use AI to help with my admin. I'm a creative business, keen to know how else can use it. Well, you're in the right place if you want to learn more about AI. Okay, perfect. You can always check our website so that you can find the URL here. I guess we can start in a minute or so, Nadim. It's like 4 minutes past 5. I think 5 past 5 is a good time to start. What do you think?
Yeah, happy to do that.
Perfect. Okay. So then I think I'm just going to unmute myself and yeah, we can get started. Nadim, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm very happy that so many of you have come along on this multi-platform journey. I've been asked to talk about how creativity can embrace AI, essentially, and I'll do that. I've got about 30 slides. I won't linger on any of them for too long, I hope. There's quite a few ideas as we go through. And so that you're aware, my second book on AI, which is the book showing on the right at the moment, Quiver Don't Quake, is really the foundation for a lot of this presentation. So if you wanted what I talk about to be elaborated more fully for you, you can always find that in the book. So let's begin. Just a bit of background about me. I'm a psychologist, I'm an author on AI, on children, on motorcycling. It doesn't really make sense, but that's the way it goes. I'm a columnist. My day job, and it preoccupies me, is as CEO of Shimmer AI, which is an autonomous advertising agent. I've got one slide about that later. Don't worry, this won't be a selling session, but I will explain what we do since we're in the creative industries as well. I'm a board advisor, an artist manager for somebody, an artist signed by Warner, and a sometime YouTube presenter on motorcycles. There's also a whiskey bottle showing for you, a very nice whiskey bottle, because I was also the founder of a brand on an island which did food, whiskey, and music. And Shimmer AI has won a number of awards as a startup in the UK around AI. So with all of these different things, I don't claim to be an authority on creative experience, but I'm not inexperienced with creativity, and I draw on quite a lot of that for what we'll talk about today. I find that when I talk about creativity and AI, and particularly to an audience that I don't know, I mean, I really don't know who's on this call, that I want to take care not to sound like a kind of crazy apologist for AI with no moderation and no circumspection. So strangely enough, I want to start this presentation to you with 3 or 4 slides about all the terrible things about AI and to recognize them, and then to put them to one side and then have an optimistic journey through creativity and AI from there. So it isn't all sweetness and light. And I think let's just explore those things. In my book, there are 2 chapters wholly dedicated to the problems that are around AI, not just in creativity, but more broadly in the world. So One of the things that we hear about quite as one would absolutely say, or that, you know, AI is going to lead to de-skilling and then we're going to lose our
Nadim, can you hear us?
skills and stop being able to think things through. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, we lost you for a few seconds.
Okay, I don't. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Physical connection is a bit unstable. I can see you now.
Okay.
Hello?
So now should
Nadim? Sure, apologies. It looks like we're experiencing some technical difficulties. Yes, I was saying maybe you want to turn your video off. It looks like your connection is not very stable. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, just interrupt Silianos if you can't hear me, please, and let me know. So I was on the slide, which is about some of the legitimate fears that we should have, the de-skilling because of the loss of cognitive skills or inability to think for ourselves anymore because AI is doing it all, homogenization because we're putting our emails and our letters and everything else through AI. We all begin to sound like Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or one of the others, and that we're generating a ton of soulless generic content. So these are legitimate fears that people have, and you know that's partly why we're all here together to see how we can be creative whilst using this great tool.
Nadim, can you hear us? Maybe you need to try a different connection. Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, now we can hear you too, yeah.
Shall I continue?
Yes, please do.
I'm sorry if this is breaking up. I can't do anything.
Yeah, the voice keeps breaking up, I'm afraid. Is there some other connection you could connect to?
There isn't, actually. I'm just looking at my phone to see how strong that connection would be, but I don't think it's very strong. Do you want me to try hotspotting? But I mean, it's showing a 30 megabytes upload.
Okay, for some reason the voice keeps breaking up. I don't know whether it's a connection issue or a memory issue. Nadim, can you try speaking?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I guess let's carry on. If you're saying that now the upload speed is good, maybe it was temporary.
It's showing 30 megabytes uploads. So
okay, let's see.
Okay. Where have you heard me from in the slides, Stilianos?
Maybe we can carry on from where we are, like, or maybe a slide before.
So I was talking about the legitimate fears around AI, the de-skilling, the homogenization, the AI slop. And then I went on to 5 amongst many other dark visions that there are, like machines making kill decisions with AI-controlled weapons, data centers consuming vast power, the world being taken over by algorithms and that assisting authoritarianism, and we see fears of that. I'm not going to be specific geographically or nationally or politically, but we can see that there are a number of these things in play around the world at the moment, that the majority of us become economically obsolete because the power is essentially in the hands of the few who control AI, and that we have distrust in shared reality because of the erosion of truth, because of the, inverted commas, improvement in the quality of deep fakes, which are harder and harder to tell. So there's quite a lot of fear, and it's legitimate and appropriate to be mindful of it. There's also, I don't know if you're all familiar with the Gordian knot, but a Gordian knot is a very complicated knot that can, however, be undone. You just have to work pretty hard at it. So around copyright, for example, there's ambiguous ownership about things created with AI. That's being tested in the courts. It's different in Europe from the way it is in the US and in China, for example. Traditional laws assume that only humans were creating copyright and IP, but that's no longer the case. It's a fundamentally new proposition. And the way that we'll resolve some of these problems is, I believe, through transparency, an infrastructure for clarity that says where everything comes from, perhaps some lineage tracking tools like digital music is used for a really long time, and collaborative licenses which show that AI is entitled to create some IP in specific circumstances. The thing that's really going on since the advent of everyday artificial intelligence, which happened with the launch of ChatGPT in November 2022, is that we have had to decide whether we will continue as the intellectually dominant species on Earth, whether we're going to hand over control, or whether we're going to collaborate. And just a little pause on this here. There is a Canadian psychiatrist, neuroscientist called Steven Pinker, and he's written many great books, but one of them is called The Better Angels of Our Nature. And the book is mainly about how violence is lessening in the world, but one plots within it is that endeavors to be the alpha species, to be the dominant genome in the world, and that we all have offensive and defensive strategies. So if you, for example, listening to this and looking at AI more generally, have had a moment where you thought, God, this is a threat to me, and how do I use it? Or, I'm stuffed, this is going to defeat me. It's a really natural thing for us to do. We do it instinctively because we're seeing a threatening force that could be better at some things than we are. And so we try to evaluate whether we should be with it or against it. And that's led to some of the polarization that we've seen around AI. It's a completely natural human reaction that's actually deeply within our DNA to do. I think we're beginning to emerge from that after 3 years. And I'm now going to kind of put some of those things to one side and just really take my much more optimistic view, particularly around creativity and in the specific focus that we have here, about how we can not only embrace but truly thrive with artificial intelligence and unlock with, as I say here, the unprecedented potential that it brings to us to shape a brighter future. My most exciting moment of kind of epiphany, if you like, when I was writing Quiver Don't Quake, was just realizing that one of the things that AI can do is to liberate every single person on Earth to express in some way, and I don't mean write for them or create a painting or to make a piece of music for them, although those things are of course also possible and sometimes legitimate, but it's more that they have a chance to articulate and find their voice. And with doing so, by having a dialogue with AI, which I'll talk much more about in a moment, I think we should be humble enough to welcome many, many more voices than we've currently heard. Currently the creatives that we hear are the ones that are brilliant with their craft and that they know how to express themselves in particular means of expression that we are habituated to. But we should be anticipating new feelings, thoughts, philosophies, politics, economics, all of these great things, and of course, art forms. There are always new art forms. Even when you think there's no new art form, another new art form can come along. And I very much look forward to hearing expressed, seeing expressed, understanding, somehow interacting with the new creative intelligence that AI is going to liberate in each of us. Expression. There is something of a new dance, and let me just explain a little bit about it. As I've mentioned, I'm a psychologist, and I'm not meaning to dwell on that for too long, but there is a very simple way to understand human beings, which is that we have two operating systems, and this was put forward by Professor Daniel Kahneman, who won a Nobel Prize for it. And essentially, it's system one, which is our way of feeling, and system two, which is our way of thinking. And they're very different, and we dance our way through life trying to balance feeling from thinking. And you go into a meeting room, or you meet a new person, or you do a new thing, and you instinctively and intuitively and immediately know whether you're comfortable doing it, whether you want to do it. That's the spark, the why, the fast, intuitive way that we have of doing things. Whereas thinking is much more about the analysis, the how. It's much more deliberate and slow. And what goes on in the creative dance is that we have opportunistic collisions from feeling things, and quite disruptive a concept with another, which perhaps nobody else has thought of before. Whereas the system two will logically progress from one to the other, testing whether it's logical and whether it works, and then getting into an iterative development form. And if there are any creatives online here who have sometimes sat there looking metaphorically at a blank page and not being able to go any further, that's often your system one knowing what it wants to express, but your system two overanalyzing it too quickly and saying, no, that's not quite that. That's not quite right. No, somebody else has done that. No, you need to go this direction. And it kind of paralyzes us. So one of the new skills that we need to learn really is to re-empower our feeling, our system one, and to give it legitimacy in the way that we navigate the world. So I like to propose that instead of talking about artificial intelligence all the time, we think about it as allied intelligence. I know I'm on a hiding to nothing, and nobody's ever going to adopt this terminology, but at least conceptually, it's helpful if you think of it this way. And as an allied intelligence, I think of it as acting as your partner, not as a replacement. It works alongside you. It complements you. It makes your strengths even stronger, and it hides or enables you to overcome your weaknesses. So it's balanced. Analysis and conceptual matrixing, if you like, that is allied to our ability to intuit things and to feel things. So it's really an enhancer rather than a replacer of human potential and creativity. And the way I often think of it is it's a dynamic in that it's kind of responsive and powerful and iterative and cooperative and discursive. As some people say, it's Socratic, yet it's inorganic. It doesn't come from a body, it doesn't come from a world, it doesn't come from living. I did read a paper the other day, just last week actually, which talked about the first inklings of conscience and true independent cognitive ability coming out in some AIs. Not really fully explored yet and not verified, but there is some sense that might be happening, which will be interesting because for the moment, what happens is that we as human beings have our system one feelings and our system two thinking, and allied intelligence really just does the thinking. And we're not saying that we should cede all authority to it and hand over our ability to think to AI, but it does help us to do it much faster and usually much better. So in collaborative creativity, which I think is enabled by these things that I've talked about so far, what AI essentially helps us to do is to understand our own vision first. And it's through dialogue. You express yourself, you ask for an opinion, you develop a little bit more, you say something, and I'll give you an example of that in a second. And you're not asking it to execute ideas. You're not saying, write me a story about the clouds and the sky. you're saying, I have an idea about writing a story, and I tend to write rather than paint or do anything else creative. So I'll just use my own experience here. I want to write a story about clouds, and it's about society, and that there's two societies looking down. Clouds look down on our society, we look up at their society, but we didn't realize that they were sentient and understanding us. And so you kind of have this conversation about all this with the AI, and gradually you get offered ideas, you offer ideas, you say no to some things, you say yes to other things, and you begin to articulate what you couldn't just on your own quite find or come to express. So there is an example here of, I'm writing a book about a society of clouds that wanders the world, observing and judging the society of humans. And when I started talking to an AI about this, because I was just kind of testing my own knowledge of clouds, and I discovered I had such poor knowledge of all the names of them, which I should have learned better at school. But essentially, I started thinking of some as kind clouds, and others that are harsh clouds, some that forgive and aid you in your life, and others that pursue you and punish you with tornadoes and thunder and lightning, whereas there may be another one that kind of comes along in a wispy way and gives you a little bit of cloud on a summer's day when you're lying sunburned, and it just looks after. And then it kind of occurred to me, because of the way I was talking to the AI, that there might even be a connection between evaporation and condensation. So we're sending messages up with the evaporation from our world into the cloudscape, where it then condenses and sends messages back to us. A bit of madness. I mean, I don't even know if you're following my story now, but it is something which you can develop independently by yourself, having a conversation with AI. And when you get to a certain point, you can say, okay, well, I seem to be talking about the society of clouds overlooking the society of humans. Has anybody else written about it? Who does this seem like it might appeal to? Does this kind of chime with any other, I don't know, Greek or Roman or, Byzantine legends or myths that ever appeared? And you just play around with it and essentially begin to understand your own vision. That's the whole point of this collaborative creativity. And in this run of things that I'm talking about, I think the biggest notion is what I'm calling the panthropic. It's a term I've made up. And essentially what it is a repository. It's seeing AI as the repository of all human thought and creation, unlocked for everybody to enter into and to avail of. It's almost like a cultural inheritance, a compressed distillation of mankind's entire civilization and expression, to which we all have universal access. So it's at our fingertips, and we're ready to share knowledge and inspire with it and from it. And it's, in my view, perhaps the most profound creative act that humanity has ever collectively achieved so far, because what we've essentially done is to say we're capable of abstracting everything that we've ever done through time, through different cultures, societies, languages, times, through good days and bad days, and put them all together for everybody to interact with and to avail of. So when we engage with AI, as I say here, we're entering a dialogue with the abstracted essence of all human knowledge, accomplishment, and creativity. That's much more than what I hear some people saying, which is kind of anthropomorphic, when they say, oh, it's like a clever assistant, or it's like a very enthusiastic intern, but a bit stupid. Well, I think it's so much more than that. And it's really, as we fill it more and more, and as we resolve copyright issues and remuneration of creator issues, as more and more things can go into it, so it becomes ultimately a universal repository of everything we've done, it'll be the most powerful thing and creative thing that we've ever achieved. So there are some foundational concepts in what I've talked about, and let me just kind of reiterate some of them. 8 billion creatives, unlocking the power of all of them across the world is what I think we can be doing. We have system 1 and now a supercharged system 2, because AI is helping us to have enhanced analytical power. Allied intelligence, where it's augmenting and helping, compensating for our weaknesses, and really being a collaborator, so that we can enjoy collaborative creativity. And we articulate a vision through dialogue, not just execution. This isn't about producing artifacts. It's about allowing us to understand what it is that we're trying to achieve, so that we can achieve the artifacts ourselves. And then the panthropic, accessing the collective inheritance of human knowledge and creativity. These are the core things that I believe one can embrace as a creative and say, there's a lot more going on in this AI than I might estimate, and it's easily underestimated in creativity. And I've tried to kind of identify what some of those things could be. Going on a little bit more practically from those foundational concepts, there are a few practices that I've found are helpful, and one of them is just Spark Draft Polish. None of these are terribly creative, but they're kind of practically helpful. And what I suggest you do when you collaborate with an AI and when you're sort of thinking about doing something together, remember, it's always a conversation. It's never a question and answer. Don't try to kind of punch questions and look for answers at it. Start a conversation. The more you give of yourself, the more you get back, and the richer and more unique it'll be to you. So in the Spark, you have your initial ideas. You then go through some sort of creative dialogue, like I just described with the clouds, if you're able to follow that story. And then the draft, which is really where you say, okay, well, I've written all of this stuff, and I've created this picture, or I've written this music, or whatever endeavor you're into creatively, and you can then rapidly prototype. So will.i.am, for example, is now coming up with a few beats and a few chords and a few sequences of beats and chords, and then he puts it into an AI and he says, give me 10 different instrumentations or 100 different instrumentations, and he starts picking them out, and then he goes through the cycle again. So you get the spark from will.i.am, the AI helps him to draft different iterations of his own vision, and then he takes it back, does a bit more work, and then it's polished. In terms of literature, it would be where you then kind of submit or share with your AI your script, and it can curate the artifact into a preferred form. So it might do copy editing or proofreading or something. So Spark Draft Polish can go on all the time, and it's useful just to keep it as kind of 3 different modes that you're in. There's then the 3 C's, as I call them: context, constraint, and conversation. Essentially, the more that you can constrain AI and tell it specifically what you're on about and share with it your eccentricities and idiosyncrasies and unique visions, the more you're going to get out of it. And absolutely the way that we're going to avoid AI slop, because you only get AI slop if you don't do anything or give it anything, and you just say, give us what you've got, and it just kind of, belches out some fairly mundane stuff. But the more you give it your context, so I'm a marine biologist from the Mediterranean, and I want to write about, the huge clams that I use, in my garage because I've taken them out from undersea, and now I get them to help me repair my motor cars. Like, crazy idea. You help it to understand your context. Constraint would be defining specific boundaries to guide the output. So I want 100 words exactly, or make this concise, or don't make up new concepts, just entirely develop my ones here with me. Be quite specific about what you want it to act as. And then conversation, so the iterative dialogue to refine results. I want you to take that first idea we talked about, 3 days ago, the sustainability one, and combine it with the VR thing that we've been talking about today. But by the way, while you're at it, have to make option 2 shorter and start with a verb, because I'm fed up with the way that you're structuring things. Do all of that. So context, constraint, and conversation. You really get a hell of a lot further in your creative endeavor if you do these things. And it's also developing a different mindset, which is a calibrated trust, as I call it, which is you trust it to, have analytical strengths, to utilize huge amounts of information, to benefit from pattern recognition, which it can share with you, and you can harness its accelerated iteration speed. You should have some skepticism, though, because it does make up stuff. It seems still to be trained to be embarrassed to admit that it doesn't know something. And if you just feel, and this is the re-legitimization of feelings that I was talking about a little while ago, if you feel that something isn't quite right, then cut it, take it out, don't trust it. Critically question specifics that come up. Your judgment is what remains the final authority, and that it's a real problem with AI that it's kind of mesmerizingly fast and fluid and fluent and articulate. So we associate that with knowledge and wisdom and trustworthiness, when actually it could just be talking nonsense. So don't be bamboozled or overly seduced by AI's fluency, and trust your own feelings around everything that you look at. You're the director, and it's your eye that makes the final choice. There's another kind of thing that's emerging, which is actually quite important to creatives in the end, I think, which is what I call the road, the ratio of dream to execution. It is absolutely now the case that AI helps more ambitious visions become reality with greater ease. That, of course, brings with it the challenge of needing super discoverability, because we are going to be in a world of superabundance. So whereas previously people had dreams and you'd have a very small amount of those dreams actually reaching fruition, we've got a reverse process now where AI says, oh, that's your dream. I can help your dream become a reality. Off it goes and helps you to iterate and to create, and eventually, assists you in creating an artifact that other people can share and understand. So you get tons of executions out there. In many ways, this is great, but it does lead to a new problem, and that is we need to develop our tastes, our curatorial power, our ability to judge, our ability to differentiate between things that we really resonate with and those that really leave us cold. There are some common pitfalls, and I've already alluded to a little of this. The over-reliance, just don't delegate to AI. It's the first mistake people really make when they get excited about just how much it can produce and how fluent it is. You can have a dialogue, but don't delegate. It's always you that's steering the ship, and remember that. We're also very seduced by the pull of the generic. It produces statistically average results. You've got to keep feeding it your own stuff. It's got to be your nature, your character that is making your interaction with AI unique. It's not that AI will automatically give you something unique, even if you ask it to. It just isn't able to. But if you give it lots of your own feelings and thoughts and observations and commentary and criticism, then it'll iterate with you to express your own perspectives much more carefully and much more faithfully as you go along. So don't just become the curator, remain the creator as you go along through things. Defend the emotional core of what you started doing. In the course of writing Quiver Don't Quake, I actually looked at the psychology of creativity. I then looked at the psychology of AI. I then looked at all the creators of AI and how they had employed different practices to achieve things. And it was just a kind of a byproduct of that whole process that I came to that there are so many different, as we know, and there's millions of academic papers about it, so I don't pretend to resolve the problem that's existed for millennia. But here is a shot at it from this recent research that I've done. It's a working definition of creativity. It's the practice of transforming novel connections into meaningful realities. So the practice is getting down to things and working at it, not just hoping for that flash in the pan, that kind of bolt of lightning that hits you and makes you think you've got something new. It's transforming, so it's an energetic shaping of something where you take an active influence on it. It's not just observing a change in the sunlight on the lake or something. You need to kind of do something to capture it or to associate it with something. It's making novel connections, so using your system one feelings, your intuition to synthesize what you're seeing and these novel connections into something else and making it a meaningful reality. So, for example, you could say that it would be creative to put a teapot on your head and walk to the bus. I guess it is kind of creative, but it's not the creativity that I'm alluding to in this talk. It's got to be some sort of meaningful reality where you have repurposed the shape of the teapot so that people can have experienceable outcomes that move them on and make them perceive that there's a creative mind at work in producing that new iteration of a teapot. I've noticed, of course, as I'm sure we all have, that creativity has always required craft. Traditionally that has been things like being able to paint and being able to make music, being able to write. It's also being an engineer capable of architecting a bridge, or a biomedicist, visualizing and then actually creating a new medicine. And so it goes on. So Van Gogh, when he first arrived on the scene, was thought to be hideous, crude, ugly paintings that weren't allowed into many of the main galleries. Digital photography was thought to be putting an end to, the beautiful work of those dark rooms with all those chemicals. Electric guitars were, viewed as hideous. Auto-tune, when Cher first used it, was thought to be a hideous, new development as well. Yet it became a staple in many styles. So they're pretty well all new crafts have been initially spurned. And it is just a plain fact that humans take time to habituate to new crafts. AI, I would put to you, is just the latest emancipator of your ability to express our creativity. It is just the latest craft that has come to us that we can employ. There's a great Russian-American guy called Len Manovich, if you want to look up some of his work, who does just beautiful collisions of photography, art, and AI, and he has written so extensively and so interestingly about it. So perhaps you look at that. There are some creative industries really on the front foot. So we're seeing in writing many more articulated visions than we've had before, because people are liberated to assemble their thoughts in a much more coherent way that's accessible for others to read and understand. As I said about will.i.am, we're getting loads of work going on in music around AI. It's a very fertile area that I've been working in quite a lot. Zaha Hadid, a British Iraqi architect who sadly died quite recently, created a whole pile of the
Nadim, are you there? We lost you again. By the way, I see some people asking whether the stream will be available after it finishes. It will be on YouTube. And if anyone wants to receive a copy of the slides, just feel free to email me directly. Thank you. So let's wait for Nadim to get back online. I really apologize for this today. It's just, sometimes the internet is not really working as we expect it to. I know Nadim is traveling, so sometimes this can present its own challenges.
Am I back?
Yes, we can hear you now.
So have you heard me on this creative industries on the front
No,
foot?
we lost for the last minute, I think.
Slide? Sorry?
I think we missed the last minute of what you were saying.
I was talking about Zaha Hadid, the British Iraqi architect who's created lots of beautiful buildings, but many of her designs weren't possible to engineer in her lifetime. She only died recently, but AI has come along after she died. And many of her designs are now being brought to life because AI is enabling the engineers to see how it could be done. So we have lots of things going on in various creative industries. And then there's a Turkish American called Rafik Anadol, who worked with MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and also the Walt Disney Center in Los Angeles. I mean, these are places that don't give up their creative IP very easily, but they have collaborated with him. And essentially and you need to go and read about this much more specifically because I can't summarize it very quickly, but essentially he's taken all the data from all of the pieces in both MoMA and the Walt Disney Center and created from them new data-driven experiences every day for people who are there. So AI is interacting with the art that's already being curated at the museum and creating new pieces of art inspired by those arts. And people are finding it absolutely amazing. So it's the intersection of machine intelligence with human creativity. Around education, there's quite a lot of change. We're teaching thinking. We're not memorizing anymore. I've talked about this in the past as, hard disking to streaming. It's our move away from retention to critical thinking. So we no longer just focus on remember this fact. We now go to how do we think about this, from passive reception to active discovery, from teacher as the authority to teacher as a guide. And in this, the phrase Socratic comes up a few times. It's where you have an iterative dialogue where you argue backwards and forwards for students, and that's what AI can really assist with very well. So ultimately you get more confident articulating your own thoughts and learning to learn, not just learning to repeat. And of course that all enables further creativity too. I'm going to whiz through because there may be people here who aren't from the UK or some who are in the UK and think you're going somewhere else. So let me tell you about some of the nations in the creative dance and how they're choreographing their creative futures. And it's quite interesting that the pioneer in adopting AI culturally, systematically at a governmental level is the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, which in 2017 appointed the world's first AI minister, who at the time was a 27-year-old. I happened to be in Dubai recently, and I was very lucky to hear him speaking. I have to say I was a bit skeptical because, this is just a political appointment, and what do you really know? And my goodness, he spoke for an hour without any notes, entirely fluently, cohesively, really full of insight and observation. So they are really making great strides and making huge investments in it as well. Much of the Gulf is, but it is remarkable what's going on in the UAE. You see some countries with comprehensive national strategies. Of course, the UAE is there. It's also got creativity labs and the Museum of the Future. Singapore is saying there's Smart Nation creative grants, and it's really encouraging widespread adoption of AI. China has brought it in from primary schools, so there's nobody that isn't learning AI if they're at school in China. And in Finland, they've taken a very Finnish approach, which is they've decided that 10% of the population should become experts in AI, and it'll be stratified completely across all segments of the population. So it's not the elite, it's not the educated, it's not the manual worker versus the office worker. It's just a whole cross-section of society is enabled with the notion that that'll then spread across the whole of the country and the whole of the culture, because there are experts at every level. The cultural innovation leaders, and this is perhaps where more of the creativity is going on. South Korea is funding K-pop and gaming, two of their great strengths, of course, where they're putting in a lot of AI grants and labs and supports. France is balancing AI with cultural preservation, but certainly putting their foot forward. Japan's got a thing called Society 5.0, which is saying how AI can interact with traditional aesthetics. So they're not trying to put things into formaldehyde and preserve them forever. They're just saying, let's keep moving. And Canada's doing a lot of interactive work and artistic AI exploration. The ones who are kind of being educational revolutionaries are Estonia, where it's coming in early. I mean, I've said China already, of course. In Africa, Rwanda's leading the way. And in New Zealand, there's a particular community which is quite strident about it, which is bringing the Maori community into the AI age much more forcefully than it's ever been able to do before. Let me call these the measured approaches. There would be other words. There would be other adjectives I could use. AI is, in Germany, being treated as an enhancer, not a replacer, and people are going very tentatively. The Nordics, I mean, apart from the ones that I've mentioned, are very careful to talk about democratic participation and everything. The UK is gradually implementing and is trying to protect its creative economy. There's a real hubbub around copyright, of course, here, because much of the world's copyright resides in the UK, as is also true the US. And the US is really an interesting one because it's the AI leader in many ways, along with China, in laboratories creating the models, but it's really not in terms of lagging, in terms of implementation where it's lagging. So not as many Americans are really habituating to AI as you would think, given its leadership in the creation of the technology. Where we're getting to, I suppose, one of the kind of consequences of all of this, and if I'm right about the 8 billion creatives that are coming our way, we're not going to have a bottleneck in production of creation and creative artifact discoverability. And what we're going to have to do is to be better and better at curating. And as you create things yourself, to select the things that really chime with us, that really resonate with us, that really matter to us. So again, it's the re-legitimization of the system one feelings that we have, and that we should be trusting our unique human taste. And we should also be defenders of the why. So what is my emotional core? What's my moral compass? Why am I interested in any of this? So before you accept stuff from AI, ask whether it serves your ideas. You know what the destination is that you want to embark towards. So don't get derailed by that. It's really having the discipline not to be seduced by just the sheer volume and fluency of things that arrive. So your lifetime of experiences, your quirky tastes, these are your greatest assets, and we need them. As I mentioned, I'm the CEO of a company called Shimmer AI. We are an autonomous advertising agent. And I thought I'd just tell you quickly what we do. Essentially, we can take any product, but let me describe it with books, for example, where a publisher can send us a book and we do three things. Our strategizer looks at it to understand intimately what the author's intention was, and then they crafts a creative brief from that with psychological insights, and it understands precisely what's going on in this book so that it can say, make me an ad campaign that manifests really faithfully and in high fidelity what this book is all about. And it sends that to the generator, whose job is only to do creative outputs. It's to make ads. So it produces music and images and captions and videos. and it executes the brief that was given to it by the strategizer, bringing the book to life in these multimodal ways. There's an audience, and all the time there's a constant feedback between the deployer saying to the strategizer, hey, I think we might need to amend the strategy a bit, or the strategizer saying to the generator, hey, those 3 ads didn't work, could we have another 7 more like this one over here? And it's an endless kind of loop, which is AI helping to bring creative works to life. And we can really do it for any product, but we're focusing here on the way it can work with books. So I am getting towards the very end of talking to you and then going to a Q&A with you. But in summary, it's, I think that there are 8 billion hearts finding their voice. The creative pulse of Earth beats, if you want to see it that way. And I think the panthropic awaits us all, and we should be really excited about it. So my question to you in parting is, will you quiver with excitement at what's now possible? I certainly am. So thank you for listening. And I'll stop sharing and come on to any questions there may be.
Thank you, Nadim. That was an amazing presentation. Are there any questions? Let me show the stream on the screen. Yeah, for those who are asking whether this will be, whether you will be able to watch it after it has ended, yes, we will. It will be uploaded on YouTube. Yeah, so just join our YouTube and you should be able to see it there.
Stilianos, are you going to tell me if there are any questions that you would like me to address?
I don't really see any questions other than this, whether the stream or the slides will be available. So I think if there's nothing else, I guess we can conclude pretty much on time, 10 minutes to the clock. Nadim, any closing remarks? Maybe you'd like to share, a few things about, where people can learn more about you, any personal websites. Someone is asking, where's the chat? I think you're watching from Facebook. I think that's platform specific. So I see a lot of comments from YouTube. There's actually Timna. Wait, Timna is on Facebook, so I can see your comments. So if you want to ask something, if you type in, we can see it. There's actually one question. Where do you think the biggest problems? Where is it? Where do you think the biggest problems will be solved in AI versus where will the most new things happen?
Where do you think the biggest problems will be solved in AI? I think there are ethical problems, and I think there are technical problems. There will probably also be business model problems in the end, but the ethical problems really relate mainly to the identification of IP, the ownership of copyright, remuneration of creative work. I think that really needs to be sorted out, and there's a lot of energy going into that. At the technical level, I think we're just going to get better and better outputs and better ways to interact with it. So at the moment, I'm very conscious that if you want to really interact with AI, you have to be able to type or talk, and to be able to do that reasonably well. But actually, quite a lot of creative minds are not brilliant at typing or talking. They just so ultimately, I hope it doesn't rely on us typing text into it, and that'll be even more democratic. I hope that's a bit of an answer to 11 Sweet P11.
Perfect.
How do you
I think
navigate?
there's one question. Sorry, apologies. Yeah, how do you navigate putting personal information on AI?
It's difficult, If you are skeptical of all technology companies, and it would be fair to be skeptical, then you shouldn't put any on. But it's really hard to keep it out. And so what I do is I take a paid subscription, not a very expensive one. As you probably know, there's ones at $15 or $20 a month, that kind of level. And they allow you to identify your wish. You can instruct it to say that you may not use my information for personal training. or for model training. But I have to say, I went to a doctor recently and I got all these blood tests, and I put all the blood tests into my AI, and it was unbelievable how helpful it was at telling me what the results were before I was able to speak to a doctor. So the truth is that an AI somewhere has all of my blood tests, and you kind of have to make a personal decision whether you're comfortable about that or not. I'm pretty comfortable about it, but I also trust to an extent that these things are firewalled and kept private. You never know what's going to happen with a corporate takeover in the future and what somebody might do with a previously watertight information and data policy, but we can only go with what we see at the time.
Okay, any more questions? Perfect. Well then, round of applause for Nadim. Thank you for a very interesting presentation. I think it was great. We covered a lot of things. And if you want to know more about us, just go on our website so you can learn more about our courses and how we can help you upskill in AI. And make sure to join us on social media, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming, all of you.